Why I Can't Defend One Piece Anymore by Shane D. Why, after many years, I'm walking away from One Piece. He uploaded this a week ago. Now, anybody that knows me knows I fuck with One Piece. That's my shit. And quite frankly, I think this is a terrible time to walk away from One Piece. I mean, we're finally getting revelations in the story that we've been wondering for ages. Like, mysteries that have lingered for years are finally being revealed. We're in the end game. So it's like, damn, like, why walk away from One Piece now? So that kind of intrigued me to want to react to it. Also feel like One Piece has some issues, but all in all, it's a great fucking show. It's a fucking all time classic. One of the best stories ever told. So it's like the issues presented in this video, and I'm guessing because I haven't watched it yet. The issues presented in this video cannot be that bad, bro. Like, why are you walking away from One Piece in 2026? Like, for real. So I don't got no idea what this thing gonna say. Like, I looked at the like to dislike ratio, and like he got some. It's not the best, but it's still 85%. And the advantage going to the likes. So more likes than dislikes. Maybe he presents some valid topics in the video. Let's see what this nigga talk about. Cause I couldn't be me. That's all I'm gonna say.
Let me start off by saying this. If you like One Piece, good for you. I don't care. I used to like One Piece too. This is not a video where I'm going to tell you guys that you're wrong for enjoying One Piece. This is not a video where I'm going to try to tell you to stop reading or watching the series. This is a video about why I personally decided to step away from the series. And before anybody tries to pull the, oh, you were never a real fan bullshit, no, I was a real fan. You're talking to the same guy who made the Jolly Roger ranking video, okay? I'm the same guy whose YouTube channel started off as a One Piece centered channel. My old YouTube profile picture was literally a wanted poster from the One Piece series, okay? My first video ever to preference this was on Gecko Moria. Who the fuck cares about Gecko Moria? Well, apparently I did. I loved One Piece at one point, and I genuinely loved digging into its expansive world. Your boy even ended up going to Japan. I entered the Shonen Jump shop, and I went out of my way to purposely get myself measured next to the One Piece characters. Turns out I'm slightly taller than Zoro. I say all of this to preference that these are the words of somebody who genuinely loved One Piece at one point. This isn't ignorance, it's not bandwagon hate, so don't tell me that I never cared about the series. Don't tell me that I'm not a fan. You guys can go tweak out and cry about it in the comments section. And hey, if you guys are gonna leave death threats, try to at least make them creative, alright? Also, before anybody says, you didn't understand the story, Shane, I understood it just fine. You people are the reason why this intro is about 5 minutes long. Saying I didn't understand One Piece is an easy way to avoid engaging with criticism. I understood the story, I just stopped being impressed by it. And to be very clear, there was a lot that I did enjoy about One Piece. I liked the world, I liked the expansive universe, I liked the sense of adventure, and I was never even turned off by the weird character designs. I actually liked how One Piece looked.
Hey man, hearing all this shit in past tense is so fucking crazy to me, bro. I like the world building. I like the character designs. I like that ed on the end of that word is, bro. It's throwing me off. I never heard they, cause you mostly just get the people who never experienced it hate on it, or the people that got bored in East Blue. You feel me? And they shit on it. You rarely hear, niggas that was invested for 800 chapters and then, yeah, I liked all that stuff, but I don't like it anymore. Like that shit is throwing me the fuck off.
The over-exaggerated proportions, the goofy faces, even the fucking cartoon logic. And yes, I am fully aware that characters like Nami and Robin have toothpick waists and breasts the size of basketballs. That's not what broke me, okay? If that was my sole problem, I would have tapped out thousands of chapters ago. And so then the obvious question becomes, Shane, what really changed for you? That's right, I hear all of you in my comment section screaming, but Shane, what did One Piece do to you? And my answer in return, nothing. Yeah, you guys can call me Horty Jones because my answer is nothing. Nothing changed, and that's the problem for me. The story never evolved in a meaningful way for me. Heartbreaking, I know. And this is where we begin section 1, the stagnation of One Piece, in my opinion. In my opinion, the structure hasn't changed, and the outcomes certainly haven't changed. Whether you watch or read this story, you will soon come to realize that it is the same sequence of events unfolding over and over and over again. And after long enough, that repetition doesn't feel comforting. It feels stagnant like pond scum. And here's the loop. The Straw Hats arrive at a new island. The Straw Hats come face to face with quirky culture. Get it? Because the dog is extra long, and the island name is Long Ring Longland Island, or whatever the fuck it is. But this aside, more often than not, the Straw Hats will encounter funny locals and have strange rules on these islands. But uh-oh, something's wrong. There's an oppressive ruler, a tyrant, a real pirate, a god, perhaps a sea creature that needs to be dealt with. But then we meet a new character. Go ahead and cue the tragic flashback and the same sad music used for every sequence, but it should be stated that One Piece delivers us a plethora of themes. Dead parents, slavery, hunger, trauma. And let me be very clear here. I'm not trying to make a caricature out of any of these themes. These are serious subjects, and for the most part, I believe that One Piece actually handles these maturely and effectively. That's not the problem. That's never been my problem. My problem is the resolution is always the same. No matter how complex or horrific the situation is, it ultimately relies on Luffy between bites of meat and stretching his arms, punching the problem in the face. Different trauma, different setting, same solution. And I shit you not, this happens every single time. The island is saved, everyone cries, everyone parties, the Straw Hats leave, and then they do it again, and again, and again. And eventually, I wasn't even asking what would happen, I was only wondering when the sad backstory would start. I transformed into fortune teller Baba. And so when I would go to watch the anime adaptation of One Piece, there was no suspense for me. I mean, this shit was literally muscle memory for your boy. And this repetition becomes impossible to ignore when you notice how specific this trope becomes. Before anybody jumps to the comments, well, let's be real, I'm sure you guys are already in the comments section, but I want to be very clear about what I'm doing here. I'm not trying to say that every single chapter of One Piece is the same. I'm not talking about the travel arcs, the gag arcs, or even just the short transitions. I'm talking about the major narrative arcs that contain villains, stakes, and are supposed to have emotional payoffs with consequences. And so after my years of watching One Piece, I created this list. Because when you strip away the names, power...
Alright, let's read this. The Straw Hats arrive at a new island. An important local figure needs protection or assistance. Royalty, rebel, scientist, prisoner, family member, etc. A traumatic backstory or flashback reframes the injustice, personal, historical, or generational. A corrupt or imposed local authority is revealed. Tyrant, false ruler, proxy, god, or criminal overlord. A larger external authority or power structure escalates the conflict. World government, marines, warlords, Yonko, gods, or global systems. A countdown to disaster creates urgency. Bomb, execution, collapse, invasion, time limit. Luffy clashes with the powerful authority figure, symbol of the oppressive system. The Straw Hats leave the island. Victory, escape, or forced retreat. The world reacts after the fact. Bounty increases, news coverage, political fallout. You know what's funny? Like, humans can be so different, you feel me? We all got a heart, we all got a brain. We all got genitalia. Most of us got that. But, we could see the same, we can look at the same thing and have completely different perspectives on it. I love this. I fucking love this. I don't care. This shit hit every time. And Oda, like, these these kind of tropes are always hit, right? But I feel like we can't mention how tropey One Piece can be without mentioning how sometimes these tropes are still turned on their heads. It's not literally the same thing every time. It is similar execution, but sometimes Oda will switch some shit up in just the slightest instance to just change the structure of an arc. Like, it's not always literally the same. Because if it literally was, it would be exhausting, especially for 30 years. But man, even though like it does hit the same tropes, like bro, I don't care. I like it. I like it because it's always interesting. The tyrant, the false ruler, the criminal overlord is always interesting. The larger external authority figure escalating the conflict is always interesting. A countdown to the disaster creates, the time limit, a bomb execute. I, it's always interesting. Like I enjoy it like every time. I don't know, man. Like I, this is a valid reason. Like whatever reason you have for not liking something, especially something as frivolous as a manga, like you can have a valid. You don't even have to have a valid reason. You could not like Luffy's scar under his eye and drop One Piece, and that would be valid enough. It's just a manga. But this shit, bro, I just can't agree with it because I really enjoy the fuck out of it. Like, this shit hit for me every time. And the stakes are increasing. Like, it's not literally the same, you know?
Locations and hype. One Piece relies.
Like saying this shit after Egghead when we seeing niggas, like the world reacts after the fact. Like the Egghead, like peak at the outside world after Egghead was way different than the peaks at the outside world of different arcs. Like we saw major figures clashing. You feel me? We didn't just see Shanks looking at the newspaper or Dragon looking at a newspaper. No, bro. We saw Eustace Kid versus Shanks. We saw uh fucking Law versus Blackbeard. Matter of fact, we saw that in the middle of the arc, right? Am I tripping? That was shit. That was in the middle of the arc. We didn't even see after Egghead. We see like fucking Shanks blowing up Bartolomeo's ship. Shit like that. Did they put that in the anime yet? When did that happen? I don't remember. All right, I'm curious, but was that after Egghead? Because Egghead is over. We should have seen that, right? Am I tripping?
On a very consistent narrative structure. This is the formula that the vast majority of One Piece arcs follow, sometimes perfectly, perhaps maybe missing a variable or two at most. The Straw Hats arrive at a new island. Someone important needs their protection. A traumatic backstory reframes the injustice. A corrupt authority is revealed. A larger power structure escalates the said conflict. There's a countdown to the disaster. Luffy clashes with a powerful authority figure. The crew leaves, and then the world reacts after the fact. Now, this isn't just my opinion. This is a clear pattern that occurs time after time, and we should talk about where it applies. Looking back to the East Blue of what I would consider to be the prototype here, we can already see that the foundation is in place with arcs like Shellstown, Orangetown, Syrup Village, the Baratier, Arlong Park. You have many of these same variables with the oppressed locals, the flashback trauma, Kuma, Tyrant Authority, Luffy intervenes, and then the crew moves on. So you can clearly see that Oda has developed his foundation here, and then he tries to build upon this in the Alabasta saga, with Whiskey Peak, Drum Island, and of course Alabasta. And this is where the modern One Piece arc becomes unmistakable in my opinion. Vivi needs protection, Crocodile controls the system, there's a literal countdown bomb, the government fallout, the bounties increase, and from this point on, the structure becomes the default. With the Skypiea arc, it's the same structure with just a different coat of paint. We get both Jaya and Skypiea here, and it's a different setting with the same mechanics. We meet Konis, who of course needs the Straw Hats' help. We get Eneru acting as a false god, and then we get the historical flashback that is just reframing the injustices that are occurring, the ticking level island disaster occurring towards the end of the arc, as always, and then the crew leaves. So cosmetically, yeah, it's different because it's a sky island, but honestly, it's just structurally identical. Then we move on to Water 7 and its lobby. This arc
No, it's not. No, it's not. You just tried to bulldoze over the fact that it had a whole literal setup arc with Jaya. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe it is not valid. Come on, keep going.
I would say it perfects it. This is one of the best arcs in all of One Piece, in my opinion. In these arcs, Robin is the person who's in need of protection. The world government is the chief antagonist. There's a countdown, the initiation of the Buster Call. We get a massive aftermath where everybody's bounty jumps significantly. And then we move on to Thriller Bark, which is just another condensed variant of the formula. We have a contained setting, tragic backstories, Gecko Moria acting as the authority figure, Luffy has to beat Moria before the sunrise countdown, Kuma representing the outside escalation, shorter arc overall, same structure. Admittedly, the Summit War does shake things up a little bit, but mostly abides by the formula. Luffy ends up going to a new location. The important person that needs saving here is Ace, of course. The entire saga is a rescue mission. The whole ticking clock concept is really the execution. And of course, we definitely get traumatic flashbacks here. Ace's childhood, Luffy's bond with him, Whitebeard's idea of family, and of course, the overall authority figure here is the world government publicly executing a political prisoner to maintain order. And you could say that the larger power structure escalating the conflict here could be any of the above. The admirals, the warlords, the pacifistas. I mean, there's so many of them. And of course, Luffy clashes with these figures again and again, even when he's clearly outmatched. And then we move into the new world where this formula is reasserted at a much larger scale. The Straw Hats arrive at Fishman Island, where of course, Shirahoshi needs protection. We get the status quo traumatic flashback involving deep historical trauma between Fisher Tiger and Otohime, the involvement of Hody Jones and the new Fishman pirates.
I mean, you see how, like, the cynical use of the word traumatic, you feel me? It's not really given the kind of gravitas that it should, you feel me? Like, some of this shit is, I feel like if you go into One Piece not, how do I say this? I don't want to sound like an asshole or like somebody that's like facetious or nothing. But I feel like if you go into the story arcs with like you're not willing to like engage with what's the word I'm looking for? While I'm looking this up, there was this annoying ass bitch at my job. She kept asking me for some shit. She was just real annoying. I don't even know how to explain her. Like, yeah, like, sincere, that's the word. If you going into the arc, like, with an insincere, like, cynical view, you should drop One Piece. If you're not gonna really engage with the story on that level, on a genuine level, you should drop One Piece. If you look at the traumatic backstory that Oda puts into an arc, and you're just like, oh, checking off a list, huh, Oda? Instead of being like, oh, damn, that shit sucked. damn niggas was racist to the fishmen. Like, if you're not gonna engage with One Piece on a genuine level, then yeah, you are too cynical, because it is a overall optimistic story. even though it's mad traumatic shit, you supposed to have hope, nigga. We with the warrior of liberation. So if you can't have hope, if you're looking at shit as just like a quota for this fucking checklist that you have, that, oh, all of this shit is like monotonous and lazy, instead of just engaging with the actual shit on the page, you should drop the show. Nigga, like, real shit. Real shit. You made the right decision. You made the complete right decision. Cause I don't know, bro. When I'm reading Loki's backstory, and I ain't gonna go into specifics because, you know, the shit ain't animated yet. When I'm reading Loki's backstory, I'm not like, oh, another one for this. This is the traumatic story for Elbaf, huh? Another one. DJ Khaled, another one. Let me post a GIF on Twitter. Like, I'm not doing that shit. I'm just like, damn, niggas did Loki dirty. You feel me? Like, if you're not willing to engage with the story, you're done. You made the right choice, bro. For yourself and for the rest of us.
Out of hatred, and we get the form of the larger power structure looming through the world government and the racial hierarchy. We get the classic countdown with the Noah falling on the island. Naturally, Luffy beats Horty Jones, the crew leaves, the world reacts, and Luffy's status escalates. Then we enter Punk Hazard. Once again, we get a new island. The children need to be saved. Flashbacks through Caesar's experiments. The world government and Doflamingo's henchmen escalate the conflict. The poison gas creates a literal ticking disaster. Luffy clashes with Caesar, the crew leaves, and then we go to Dressrosa. And I'm sure you guys are getting the overall theme at this point, so I'm going to try to rapid fire through the next couple of these arcs. Dressrosa, protected figures, tragic flashbacks, false king, external power shielding him, the birdcage countdown, Luffy fights Dofi, massive world reaction. Move on to Zoe, oppressed people, historical trauma, imposed authority, the Yonko escalation with Kaido's crew, the annihilation threat of Zunisha, and then the crew moves on. Whole Cake Island, Sanji needs rescuing, we get an abusive backstory, we get more demonstrations of Yonko power from Big Mom and her crew, the countdown to the wedding, Luffy's clash with Big Mom, the escape, the global fallout. Wano, we have the oppressed nation, generational trauma, corrupt rulers like Orochi, Yonko escalation, the falling island countdown of Onigashima, Luffy fights Kaido, and then the world order shifts. Everybody reacts. The Straw Hats leave. Egghead, Vegapunk and Bonnie need protection. Traumatic backstory of Kuma, corrupt global authority, admirals and the elders escalate the conflict. The escape timer from Egghead Island, Luffy clashes with Kizaru, worldwide consequences. Now let's stop.
This is so CinemaSins coded, and that is not a compliment, bro. This sucks.
Let that breathe for a second. Different arcs, different aesthetics, different characters, but the same structure. You don't have to agree with me. In fact, I don't even think all of these arcs are bad. Some of them are great, but once you see the structure, you can't unsee it. I'm not saying One Piece is bad. I'm saying...
Bro, people that fucking love the story can see the pattern. They just don't care. They're not CinemaSins. The spirit of CinemaSins does not reside in this heart, nigga. And it's a millions of other hearts that the spirit of CinemaSins does not reside in. So I noticed the pattern. We all notice the tropes. Every story, every author has their tropes. It is what it is. We still like it, bro. That's the thing. The fact that you even think that, you know, us, the other One Piece fans who we just don't see it. That's the thing. You guys just don't see it. Nigga, we see it. We still like it. You feel me?
Predictable by design. Every arc starts to feel familiar, no matter how good it is. Different islands, different...
That shit don't make me feel like Jesse Pinkman tweaking, you know? That shit make you feel like Jesse Pinkman tweaking.
Us into section 3, another problem that I have with One Piece. It's never just about helping people with One Piece. It's always something grander, like saving a kingdom. It can never just be a random...
Yo, Vivi, your big ass head and your big ass eyeballs scare me. You look... That is a scary Vivi frame right there.
Person. Take Vivi, for example. She's not just a girl in trouble, she's the princess, and her kingdom is under threat. And the Straw Hats have to save Alabasta by defeating Crocodile. Cool, it works. Luffy punches the problem in the face, and then we move on. But then you do it again. The Straw Hats just so happen to meet Shirahoshi. And of course, what do you know? She's not just some random mermaid, she's the mermaid princess. The most important person on all of Fishman Island. And surprise, Fishman Island is in crisis. There's an extremist villain, racial tensions, generational hatred, centuries of oppression. And who shows up to fix all of that? The Straw Hats. And of course, Luffy punches out the problem, and then we move on. And in case anyone else thinks I'm cherry picking, oh look, there's another princess in another castle. I'm sure you guys are catching on at this point, but the Straw Hats meet Rebecca, another royal, another oppressed kingdom, another tyrant, Doflamingo. Say it with me, everybody. Luffy punches out the problem, and then we move on. Also, here's some more food for thought for you guys. Why is it that nobody in the One Piece universe can just be a person? You're probably asking, Shane, what do you mean by this? Well, what I mean is that everybody has to be somebody. Oda needs to give everybody some inflated sense of importance. For example, Luffy didn't just grow up with some random kid, it just had to be Gold Roger's son, the fucking Pirate King. Because of course it was. And this isn't even the worst part. Luffy also grew up with Sabo, who I'm not exaggerating, is also born into nobility. He survives an incident that should have absolutely killed him, conveniently loses his memory, and then grows up to become the second in command of the Revolutionary Army. And we're all just...
He was just a person. He was just a guy. He was just a rich guy. Yeah, he was a rich guy, but he was just a guy. He was just a random kid. If that's what we're doing,
supposed to accept this without thinking. But I'll come back to Sabo later because I have a whole section on him. But moving forward, Sanji just couldn't be a regular cook. His backstory with Zeph, oh, clearly that wasn't good enough. It turns out that Sanji is a genetically enhanced royal prince from a bloodline of the evil Germa family. Yeah, this is really enhancing Sanji's character so much more. I'm so glad we did this. Also, look at Shanks.
it literally did. People love the backstory. People love Sanji's childhood. What is he talking about? That you talk about critically acclaimed shit. It did give people a deeper understanding of Sanji and a deeper appreciation for Sanji. You're just too cynical, bro. Not too cynical. I don't know. You're cinema sins coded, bro. You're too cinema sins coded.
Shanks couldn't just be a strong pirate. Now his father has to be one of the 5 elders, therefore making Shanks royalty. Oh, but we can't forget that Shanks also has an estranged twin brother who just so happens to be a world noble. Why? Why couldn't Shanks just have a normal family? Do we even need to know Shanks' family? Seriously? Did Sanji really need a cyborg royal lineage? Was it necessary for Luffy to grow up with the king of the pirates' son? In my opinion, this isn't depth. I think it's an over-connection, and seriously, despite how big the One Piece world is, I think these overt connections make the world feel smaller. And to the One Piece fans defending this, ask yourself this. Was it really necessary that we had to find out the Queen of the Beast Pirates was Frankie's father? But Shane, they're both cyborgs.
I've got to say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit that I have ever heard.
I could have gone the rest of my life without knowing this. Everybody has to be connected in some weird, intricate way. It amazes me that Oda will tell us some useless piece of trash knowledge like this, but we get no information still after 25 plus years later about the Will of D, and we only get a tidbit of information about the Void Century, essentially confirming what we already knew, that it was a global war, and that the world government had erased history on purpose. Now, to all the One Piece fans here, I'm not trying to be pretentious, I'm just imploring you to acknowledge that as the story
Hey, you make it look easy, nigga. If you're not trying, you make it look easy, nigga.
has gone on, more characters are revealed to be either royalty, the children of legends, connected to the world-shaping families, directly tied to the world government or the 5 elders in some way. And overall, as large as the One Piece world is, it becomes claustrophobic when every single character is connected to one another in some weird way like this. Everyone has to be super.
And when everyone's super, no one will be.
That's a great movie, but don't put that shit in my face, bro. Anyway, I actually don't really disagree with this that much. I like the Sanji shit. I don't care that Luffy grew up with Ace. I feel like the details, not just the surface level, oh, he grew up with the king of the pirate's son, but the actual details, the actual intricacies of their relationship make up for what is being considered over connection. You feel me? That he says. So yeah, I like that shit. Maybe Queen being Frankie's father. I kind of had a similar reaction. Like, why does everybody kind of have to be connected? But at the same time, Queen isn't really that important globally. Like, he's not really known like that. You feel me? Kaido take up most of that spotlight. We ain't never hear about Queen like that. We ain't really hear about Queen like that. He don't really got no motion outside of Wano like that. He could throw a concert on Wano. He can't throw a concert in the New World anywhere else. He can't throw a concert in East Blue. Nobody would know him.
Alright guys, try to keep up with me for the next one here. Through time travel shenanigans, we get to meet Kozuke Momonosuke, who I will refer to as Momo, who turns out to be royalty, because of course he is. And once again, the Straw Hats have to overthrow the evil villain Kaido and restore his kingdom. And of course, the Straw Hats bring forth restoration by once again Luffy punching out the problem, and we move on. And it was at this point in the story, after Wano, that I completely checked out, because the solution is almost always the same. Notice how I'm saying almost always the same. Oda dresses up this fine veneer of a different island, different costumes, and introducing a different villain each arc, but all of it, every single bit of it, serves the exact same narrative function. The only thing that ever changes in this story is the power label the story slaps on the antagonist. At first it's, oh, we're just dealing with a marine captain or an average pirate. What are we gonna do? Oh, just get Luffy to punch it. Okay. And then it's, oh, this one's a warlord of the sea. Alright, gotta be careful here. Just get Luffy to punch it in the face. Okay, and now we're at the point in the series where it's, oh shit, this is getting serious. We're dealing with the emperors now. This villain is stronger than all the previous villains combined. And the solution is still the same. Luffy punches it in the face. Now, I have a question for all the One Piece fans who are obviously seething in my comment section right now. Do you guys not realize that this is just a different island, different costumes, different villain, but it's the same narrative function?
See, you know, at the beginning of the video, you said this is not me saying we don't. This is not me saying I want you to dislike One Piece or whatever he said at the beginning. Let's replay it just for, you know, we're 14 minutes in.
You're talking to the same guy who made the Jolly Roger recently decided to step away from the series. And you're watching the series. This is like One Piece 2. Alright everyone, listen up, because I have something important to tell you. Let me start off by saying this. If you like One Piece, good for you. I don't care. I used to like One Piece too. This is not a video where I'm going to tell you guys that you're wrong for enjoying One Piece. This is not a video where I'm going to try to tell you to stop reading or watching the series. This is a video about why I personally decided...
Great. You're not telling me that, but let's just go back 14 minutes.
Power label the story slaps on the antagonist. At first it's, oh, we're just dealing with a marine captain or an average pirate. What are we gonna do? Oh, just get Luffy to punch it. Okay. And then it's, oh, this one's a warlord of the sea. Alright, gotta be careful here. Just get Luffy to punch it in the face. Okay, and now we're at the point in the series where it's, oh shit, this is getting serious. We're dealing with the emperors now. This villain is stronger than all the previous villains combined. And the solution is still the same. Luffy punches it in the face. Now I have a question for all the One Piece fans who are obviously seething in my comment section right now. Do you guys not realize that this is just a different island, different costumes, different villain, but it's the same narrative function, beat for beat, time after time? At this point in the series, Luffy could go Gear 5th, scream Gum Gum Galaxy Cluster, Elephant Nut Buster, Red Rifle Supernova Sloppy Toppy Attack. He could knock out all of the warlords, all of the emperors, every single admiral. He could collapse Marijois. He could beat the Gorosei's ass. Luffy could slap Eam off of his throne and then stretch his fist down into Gold D. Rogers' grave and grab his corpse and fucking strangle him. And you know what, guys? I would feel nothing, because I already know how every fight in this story resolves. I don't even feel the escalation anymore. People act like raising the power ceiling automatically raises the narrative stakes. And this would almost be true if death actually existed in this universe, and I'll talk about that in full later. But I'm sorry guys, there's no amount of beautiful Toei animation and flashing colors that's gonna be a substitute for good writing. Luffy could scream his head off and throw the best punches in the universe, but if the arc isn't well written, then I'm not gonna be invested in the narrative. And when we talk about narrative, oh my god, One Piece has a pacing problem, and there is so much narrative padding that...
Okay, he didn't really address what I was talking about any further. I really dislike this comment right here.
In my comment section right now. Do you guys not realize that this is just a different island, different costumes, different villain, but it's the same narrative function, beat for beat, time after time? At this point...
Do you guys not realize that this is the same thing over and over? It's like, you're not telling me to dislike the series. You're not telling me that I'm wrong for disliking the series. Your words, not mine. But you're acting like I'm intellectually, like, inferior if I don't identify the tropes. But as I stated earlier, fans identify the tropes, we just still enjoy it. It does not make me feel like Jesse Pinkman fucking tweaking on meth. It makes me feel giddy and happy inside. That's the difference between me and you. You know? Like, we just have different opinions. That's all it is. I'm not dumber for enjoying One Piece. Do you guys not realize that this is happening? We realize it. We don't care. It is what it is.
This series. One Piece doesn't just have slow pacing, it has hostile pacing. It took Moist Critical 5 years to finish this series, and he was watching it with one pace, which skips all of the filler. Your boy did not have that same luxury. I was never the same after the Davy back fight round 2. But in all seriousness, One Piece constantly stalls itself through contrivances that exist for one reason only: to delay progress. Uh-oh, Luffy is stuck in the pool at Arlong Park. Luffy gets swallowed by a snake in Skypiea and thinks he's inside a cave, because again, this main character has room temperature IQ. Oopsie, Zoro fell into the chimney. What's that, you say? We have to wait 20 chapters before Luffy can arrive on the rooftop in Wano? Now, we all know that these are contrivances that Oda deliberately puts in here to try to stagnate the plot further. And of course, you don't want the clash with the main villain to happen immediately. But after a certain point, some of this stuff just becomes ridiculous. The stalling and the narrative padding really draw out these arcs. And at this point in One Piece, if you don't like one of the modern arcs, oh man, I'm sorry, but you gotta strap in, because there is no escape. No short detour here, no palate cleanser, nothing. And this is exactly what happened to me. Wano was a particularly hard arc for me to get through. The pacing of Wano destroyed me, and I just found myself asking, Oda, how many days are we gonna be in Wano for? And the next day! 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 Now, I struggled getting through Wano, not because of the island itself, I actually thought that was pretty interesting, but I just really couldn't get behind Kaido. And unfortunately for me, I was stuck with this guy for fucking hundreds of chapters. Now, I don't like to use crude labels like this, so I'm not gonna say that Kaido is a stupid villain, but I would say that he is a little bit underdeveloped, maybe half-cooked. He doesn't really have a personality. I mean, we get a backstory with Rocks, Big Mom, how he got his devil fruit, the rivalry with Odin, I think that was okay. And then we just spend hundreds of chapters on this. But a backstory does not equate to a personality. You can give this character all the lore in the world, and it doesn't mean that he's well written. When we boil Kaido down to his essence, what do we really take away from him? Well, we know he's strong. We know he's an alcoholic, and we know he wants to unalive himself. I mean, are we really describing one of the emperors of the sea or my stepfather? And all of these traits lead to one of the dumbest
That was a good
introductions
joke.
for a character I have ever seen. Kaido is introduced to us as he attempts to unalive himself by jumping off of the Sky Island. Kaido in this chapter makes a big impact, both literally and metaphorically. And I'll be entirely honest with you guys, when I first saw this in the anime, I thought this was one of the most badass character introductions of all time. Sad to say this, but I specifically remember a younger version of myself tweaking out on the couch, being like, oh, I can't wait for the Straw Hats to take on Kaido. Oh my god. But then you think about this scene for any longer than 2 seconds, and you realize how stupid it is. You realize, oh, Kaido is a devil fruit
He's gonna say he could just jump in the ocean. Here we go.
user. So let me ask you One Piece fans a very simple question. If Kaido really wanted to die, then why didn't Kaido just go play in the ocean, huh? Oh, and I can already hear you guys typing in the comment section. But Shane, Kaido wanted an honorable death on the battlefield. Okay, let's take that premise, alright? Let's say Kaido wanted to die on the battlefield. Then why did he dodge Zoro's attack? Why did he build the Beast Empire? Why would he avoid things that would kill him if this stupid fuck really wanted to die? If you want to die, you don't
How's it an honorable death if you fucking let yourself die, you fucking idiot?
spend hundreds of chapters actively preventing it. So it's either Kaido doesn't actually want to die, or the concept was never truly thought through by Oda. And this is the concept for a character who becomes the backbone of a multi-year-long
If you are a warrior and you want an honorable death, why would you just let yourself be killed? Why? Especially by somebody that you know is weaker than you. It's not like Zoro and Mihawk where, hey, shout out to our brother. Appreciate you, man. It's not like Zoro and Mihawk where, like, when they was on Baradier, you know, Zoro knew he couldn't, Zoro knew he couldn't beat Mihawk. So yeah, just cut me, bro. Just cut me. Kaido knows he could squash Zoro like a bug. Why would he just let him cut him? This doesn't make any sense.
And this was one of my main problems with Wano. You're trapped in this seemingly endless arc with a character who you couldn't care less about. And while the plot is stalling, we're also being fed the same cycle of gags endlessly for decades. How many times am I gonna have to listen to Brooke wanting to see some panties? Like, at this point, just show the man some fucking underwear. This stuff happens over and over again. We get Sanji, his nose bleeding at the sight of a woman. So many times that Oda actually escalates this into a plot point. Sanji gets a nosebleed underwater and practically bleeds out from glancing at a mermaid. Think about how insane this is. Here we are in an arc with racial tension, historical oppression, political extremism, the legacy of Fisher Tiger, and the driving plot point is, oh, Sanji is bleeding too much because he's horny. This, in my opinion, isn't comedy. I think it's just tonal sabotage. And yes, I know that One Piece is supposed to be a goofy series. I've never had a problem with the majority of the character gags. In fact, I think some of them can be quite funny, like Zoro getting lost, for instance. I'm not saying that the series can't be goofy, but eventually my patience with One Piece really starts to run out, because we've gotten these gags hundreds of times.
Also, I hate when people bring up a criticism of something that is like almost universally maligned, such as Sanji's role on Fishman Island. Everybody hates that. No one likes his role on Fishman Island. It is like a low point for One Piece in a lot of people's eyes. I hate when people act like, yeah, that is a criticism that everyone has. It's not just you, dude.
And honestly, at some point I just consider this to be wasted narrative space. We could be using this same time to resolve some of the mysteries that Oda himself has introduced hundreds of chapters.
Wasted narrative space. Brooke with one speech bubble saying, "Can I see your panties?" Maybe 2 panels in like 100 chapter arc. Are you dead ass?
Ago. Oda has introduced so many mysteries into the One Piece worlds, and all of the One Piece fans, they just eat this shit up. The resolution, it doesn't even matter. The Void Century, the Will of D, Joy Boy, the Ancient Kingdom, the Ancient Weapons, the true nature of Devil Fruits, the world government's origin, how did Blackbeard get his powers, where is Laugh-Tale located, what does Eam really look like, and of course, what is the One Piece? And instead of answering any of these inquiries, Oda chooses to do this instead.
Good question. For another time.
Instead, we get hints, teases, half sentences, and silhouettes, just more vague statements that promise answers later on. And of course, I'm not expecting all of these to be answered right away. But I mean, come on, at this point, do you think we would have some answers to this universe? Do you guys know how long it took for Oda to actually show us Dr. Vegapunk's face? After all of the years of these bullshit silhouettes and purposely obscuring his head? Hundreds of chapters, years of waiting. You guys ready for this? Was this design really worth over a decade of silhouette hype? Is there any real payoff from seeing this? Oda seems far more interested in...
Dude, are you kidding me, bro? Are you really kidding me? Do y'all think the design... Do y'all think the design has to live up to the years of silhouettes? I would, bro. People headcanoned and like speculated that Vegapunk would look like Einstein literally the whole time. So it's not even like, it wasn't even a disappointment. It just met expectations. But then Vegapunk's personality, like, I enjoyed Vegapunk, like just the way that he acted and shit. So like matter of fact, one of my favorite aspects of Vegapunk in general is how selfish he is. Yo, this nigga. Yo, Vegapunk, that nigga Dragon said Vegapunk join the Revolutionary Army. And he said, y'all don't got no money to fund my inventions. No, I'm not joining the army. Like, that was so funny. Like, I love how selfish this nigga is. Because everyone else is. Everybody wants treasure. Everybody wants this or that. Wealth, fame, power, like the intro says. Like, I love that shit. I love his personality. People say, "Oh, he was dumb. He really thought the government was gonna use pacifistas for good." Bro, in my opinion, I don't think Vegapunk gave a fuck. I think Vegapunk will create, and whatever happens, happens. That's my headcanon. I don't know if that's really true. Oda, answer me in the SBS, nigga. But I don't think Vegapunk gives a fuck, man. I think Vegapunk could care less what actually happens. Like, he just want to make shit. I really think that's his character. Like, he just want to make shit regardless. It don't matter. Like, okay, y'all using this for war crimes. It is what it is.
Setting up intrigue for his series than actually paying it off. And for every
Cause he dead ass told Dragon, "No, I'm not joining the Revolutionary Army." Like, he knew his shit wasn't gonna be used for good like that.
We get 3 new ones dropped on us. We get so much world building in this series, so much lore density, and Oda excels at this. He does a great job. I don't think Oda is a bad author. All I'm asking for is a little bit of narrative closure here, because when everything's a mystery, nothing feels meaningful. And this brings me to my next critique. Oda tries to create a fake sense of meaning.
Stupid ass take, man. I ain't gonna lie. That might be the worst one of the video so far. Like, first of all, there's not really a new mystery every time. I feel like we've kind of maxed out on mysteries. The ones that we're gonna get are the ones that we're gonna get. I feel like the structure of the story is set in stone for the remainder of it. So I don't think there's anything else really other than like Will of D, Void Century, this, that, whatever, Origin of Devil Fruits. Like, I don't think there's really gonna be that much more that we have to learn. I feel like we've been crossing shit off the list, and the list of major mysteries in One Piece is like almost as short as it's ever been. Or not even almost. It is as short as it's ever been.
Through urgency. The race against finality, or the ticking clock, is one of Oda's favorite tools. One Piece does this thing that I like to call Dragon Ball time. Remember when Frieza tells Goku, "The planet will explode in 5 minutes"? And then these 5 minutes proceed to turn into 20 episodes? Well, Oda does have his own version of this. And it's because so many of the arcs ended the same way, with either the Straw Hats escaping or winning, that Oda has to inject this artificial countdown so it feels as though we have some sort of urgency or stakes. Now, I'm going to be listing multiple examples of Oda using this narrative crutch, but I'm sure, just because of the sheer length and girth of One Piece, that I'm missing something here. But this aside,
Thank you.
Let's start off with Little Garden, where we have the Wax Candle of Doom. Here we have a countdown where the Straw Hats have to escape the wax before they essentially turn into statues. Then we move into Alabasta, where we have a literal countdown with the bomb about to detonate. In Skypiea, we also have a race against the clock, where Luffy has to stop Enel before he completely erases the island. In Water 7, we have the Aqua Laguna, which is just looming like a natural disaster deadline. Then Enies Lobby with the Buster Call countdown before the island is completely destroyed. Thriller Bark, we have the Sunrise countdown, where Luffy needs to beat the piss out of Moria and return all the shadows before the sun rises. Marineford is pretty obvious. You have to save Ace before the execution schedule. Fisherman Island, the Noah falling, crashing into the island. We gotta stop that. Punk Hazard, we have the race against the poison gas. You gotta get to safety. Dressrosa, the birdcage, enclosing all the people and killing them. Wano, Onigashima is about to crash into the capital. Gotta stop it. And my personal favorite, Big Mom wanting birthday cake. Gotta get this bitch dessert before she destroys the entire island in a rampage. But my entire point, and the crux of what I'm saying...
Alright, this is what I mentioned earlier that this nigga is mad cinnamon sins coated. This is the type of shit that I mean. You are not engaging with the story on a genuine level. You are looking at everything instead of looking at characters, metaphors, this, that. You are engaging with it like on just such a cynical level. You're only looking at this as, you're looking at these things as not just as what they are presented to you as. You're just looking at them as contrivances. You're looking at them as, oh, this is fake urgency. That's the title of this section of the video. You're not engaging with it on like a genuine level. Like, I don't even know what you really enjoy about One Piece, because you don't the way that you've presented your reading experience, your reading slash viewing experience of the show, like, you don't engage with it like genuinely. You engage with it so cynically. I can't even really tell what you do like, and I feel like those are the best critiques when when the person who's making a critique video, when you can tell that they have or had genuine love and genuine interest in whatever they're critiquing, it validates their critiques, because okay, this person is not just a blind hater. They actually had love for this thing at one point in time, and now they don't. Let's see how this goes. Let's see what their opinions are. But you have presented your criticisms of One Piece in such a cynical view. I can't even tell what you liked about the fucking show. I feel like that is a disservice that you did. I feel like that is a low point of this video. I feel like that is a failure of this video to get your point across, because you don't come across as a valid guy. This is a fucking whimsical show, and like you're like the fucking Pixies from Fairly Odd Parents. Like you don't fucking, you have no love. There's no love coming across for this. And I know obviously the video is about him not liking One Piece anymore, but like nothing, no heart is coming through in your words, my nigga. Like, this shit is just, it's not like blind hate. I don't think this is a blind hate video. I wouldn't categorize it as that. But it's just so cynical. I can't really fuck with it. I can't respect it, if that makes sense. Let's keep watching it.
Here is that urgency without risk is nothing but theater. And this is why the race against the clock doesn't work for me anymore in One Piece. This countdown exists to simulate stakes that don't even exist. Oda uses these various countdowns to give you an artificial feeling that the tensions and stakes are being raised. But more importantly, Oda uses these countdowns to truly avoid consequence, because real stakes would require real loss, and that's something that One Piece refuses to do. And this brings us to what is, in my opinion, the single most egregious, disgustingly narrative cowardly thing that Oda does in all of One Piece. Fake out deaths. This is not a nitpick. This is not a handful of mistakes. This is a pattern that is so severe throughout One Piece, it has deprived the series of all narrative tension. There are so many fucking meaningless characters in this series, and yet Oda refuses to kill any of them out of narrative cowardice. Oda wants you to feel as though these characters are dying without ever committing to them actually being dead. Death stops meaning anything in this universe. There's a line of dialogue in the anime adaptation of One Piece in the Wano arc between Sanji and Chopper. I found this line to be beautifully ironic, and honestly it acts as an allegory and like a thesis statement for the entire series of One Piece, even though this is 100% unintentional on Oda's part. Sanji saves Chopper from Queen and the Beast Pirates, okay? And he says to him, "Don't cry, you fool. How many times have we seen miracles?" And on the surface, this is meant to be comforting, a statement of hope. Maybe it's inspirational. But miracles stop being miracles when they happen constantly. They stop being extraordinary. They stop meaning anything. A miracle, by definition, is supposed to be a rupture in reality, something that should not happen but does so anyway. Yet in One Piece, miracles aren't rare interruptions. This is just the default setting of the universe. Characters survive explosions that level cities. They endure fatal wounds with no lasting consequences. They fucking die, only to walk it back an arc later with a bandage and a joke. And when everything is survivable and every sacrifice is reversible, nothing is truly at stake in this universe. And that's why, reading this story for me, One Piece has quietly undermined itself the entire time. Oda wants us to cry. He wants us to believe that a moment is tragic, final and devastating, but then it's that same pattern, over and over. No matter how bad things look, everything will be fine, everyone will survive, and the world will reset. And that's why Sanji's line becomes the perfect metaphor for all of this. Don't cry. It
ain't really nothing I could say in this section. I mean, nigga, there's mad characters that probably should have died. I ain't really tripping. You know, I've accepted it. You know, I do feel like, you know, like Pell, what does Pell really bring to the story? Why did he have to survive, if that makes sense? I guess, like, You feel me? Like this part of the video, I can't really disagree with, but it doesn't really. Everything else, I feel like One Piece does so well. I really don't give a fuck that much. Like, because okay, let's say, for example, I hope this isn't like a. I'm not trying to deflect, but let's say Pell, the nigga from Ennie's Lobby. What's the most egregious fake out deaths? Like, this guy, that guy in this arc. Sure, and you're right, brother. It's not just One Piece, but yeah, just say. Let's say all those characters actually died. All the fake out characters in One Piece that aren't main characters, but let's say some lesser characters die. Then it would be like, okay, no main character is gonna die. That would just, the criticism would just evolve. So it is what it is. I don't really care.
Seen this before, and that's exactly right. We have seen this before so many times that death has lost its meaning. Now, I could end this segment right here. The point is already clearly made, but instead, I'm going to do something far less abstract. I'm going to go through every fake-out death that I could find in One Piece, one by one, and let's see if anyone can still seriously argue that this doesn't hollow out the stakes. So to start off, we have to trace our steps back to the East Blue, where we have the Mary. No, not the ship, even though One Piece fans probably count that as a death. I'm talking about Kaya's butler, Mary. Kuro literally slashes this man open. We see the blood all over the place. We get an emotional beat, the dramatic framing. But of course he's alive. Moving on, we have Geen from Don Krieg's crew. Severely poisoned. This is treated like a death sentence, but we'll never see this character again. Nope, he's fine. Already, we are this early into the story, and it's telling you, don't trust what you're seeing. And then we move into the Brokeworks arc, where the explosions are basically confetti at this point. We have Mr. 9, who is blown up at point-blank range by Mr. 5. I mean, look at this man's face. He is literally eating this shit. And this scene is treated like an emotional death, with Vivi screaming as this man is essentially blown into orbit. But nope, he's alive. And speaking of other characters that survived, we have Miss Monday, who was also blown up at point-blank range. But don't worry, guys, she's completely fine. She only took a grenade to the face, and we just see her fiery corpse, right, with Vivi screaming, but she's good, don't worry, she's still alive. And then we have Igram, who's blown up by Robin. Like, they dropped both the little boy and the fat man on this guy, and he comes back, I shit you not. This man strolls back into the story. He saunters on in with one single band-aid on his face. One band-aid, zero explanations. You want to know how he survived? Fuck you, that's how. We don't get an explanation. This is genuinely Looney Tunes type shit here. And then of course we have Pell, probably the most infamous fake-out death in the entire series. So Oda writes this emotional scene, essentially giving Pell an entire chapter of his own leading up to the sacrifice. And then we get the sacrifice itself. Pell carrying a bomb meant to destroy the entire country of Alabasta. It's heroic, emotional. We see the bomb go off, and this thing looks like a nuclear explosion. This bomb looks like something ripped straight out of the subspace emissary from Brawl. And Pell, after getting this emotional chapter leading up to his supposed death, he survives. Just somehow, don't even think about it, just turn off your brain and accept Oda's work, okay? And it was from this point on in One Piece where death became completely optional. And then moving on, we get Mr. 2, who fittingly has two fake-out deaths. One at the end of Alabasta, and the second as he fell down. But his...
I just watched this video recently, too. Some of the ones in Bleach get you, upset you. I gotta watch Bleach still. But it's funny. I was watching a video recently. Somebody said the fact that Ashura Doji died and Pell survived is fucking crazy. Which is very funny because the explosion that killed Ashura Doji was not that big. And then we got that nuclear bomb right there. Like, Pell survived.
Second
I don't know, maybe Pell just built different.
He's literally asked by Magellan, any last words? I don't know how anybody could defend this. I mean, the phrase, any last words, is universal language of storytelling, meaning this character is dead, except no, of course he survives, and then he fucking survives again, and then he survives again. And then at this point in the story, I don't even believe what I'm being shown. Then we move to Skypiea, where we meet Pagaya, Konos' father, who, in my opinion, gets one of the most absurd fake-out deaths in the entire series. This guy gets an entire death scene written out for him, where he heroically pushes his daughter...
Honestly, though, I don't mind Bon Clay's fake out deaths because that's kind of becoming like his thing. Like, he gets out of sticky situations. Pause. But yeah, that's like his thing.
Away, taking a fatal strike from an L's lightning. It was an emotional and well-written scene, hit me right in the heart. And at the end of the arc, Konus tells the Straw Hats about Pagaya's passing. Chopper saying, "Don't tell me." Nami looking devastated. Konus on the brink of tears. Sanji looking distraught. Luffy's upset. But just then, Pagaya returns from the great beyond for Oda to break the fourth wall and for Pagaya to apologize for still being alive. He can't keep getting away with it! He can't keep getting away with it! I mean, this is Oda admitting he knows how ridiculous this is. And the sad thing is, this isn't even the only fake out death in Skypiea. We get to see Bellamy, but...
Bro. One Piece does not make me feel like Jesse Pinkman reacting to Walter Wright terrorizing him and leaving destruction in his wake. That it does not make me feel like that.
To be executed with his neck literally on the chopping block, but of course he shows up later. He's completely fine, so don't worry about it. And then we move on to Jaguar D. Saul. This is going to be controversial for you guys, because I know there are going to be some One Piece clowns that defend this. This is emotional manipulation without payoff. This is one of the most emotionally dishonest fake-out deaths in the entire series. Oda milks the hell out of this scene. Pages and pages. Robin crying. Saul telling her, "You have to live, Robin." I mean, and this is framed as
It's funny how, like, this guy can read the series and just not feel anything. Like, let's do another tally mark for this traumatic backstory, number 42. And then he can describe another backstory as emotional manipulation. Like, does it mean nothing to you, or does it mean everything to you? What the fuck are you talking about, emotional manipulation? Like, that type of hyperbole invalidates your credibility a little bit as well. Because you just said you view the story as like nothing almost. Like you don't feel anything when looking at these pages anymore. But Jaguar D. Saul's fake out death is emotional manipulation. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What was that line from Eddington? I can't say. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it.
Right now, we're playing at maybe being like white critical. Maybe we're white traders, but the goal.
Dismantling whiteness and not allowing whiteness to reassert itself. But we're pretty much light years away from that. Are you fucking retarded? What the fuck are you talking about? You're white.
Yo, like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, what is happening?
Death and foundational trauma for Robin. Except, fast forward hundreds of chapters later, Saul is alive. And I know some of you One Piece fans are going to try some retroactive justification talking about how Robin lost Professor Clover and her mother, so therefore it's completely fine because she still has a traumatic backstory, and that Oda actually wrote himself a way out with this because of the Ice Time Capsule attack, even though in reality Aokiji froze Saul with the attack Ice Time. But no, you don't get to do this. I mean, if you want death to matter in your universe, you don't take it back after you milk this shit for tears. Once again, this comes off as Oda trying to emotionally manipulate the audience without any real stakes being involved. Then we move on to Spondum. His spine is snapped, completely broken asunder, and simply put, this man should be dead, but he's not. Why? Oh, because nobody dies in One Piece, that's why. Then we move on to Thriller Bark, where we get Dr. Hogback, who is crushed by ores, a giant weighing hundreds of tons. He lives. Why? I don't know, because Oda refuses to commit to anything. And this is why I say death does not exist in this universe. We have characters with essentially zero narrative importance, and Oda makes these guys immortal. This character, Lakuba, that's right, he has a name. The pirate at the auction house who bites off his own tongue. It's horrific. It's shocking. And yet he's still alive. Like, Oda won't even kill the characters that don't matter. This shit is terrible. And then we move to Fishman Island, okay? We get Vanderdecken, impaled by a trident. He's alive. Then we get Mocha, okay? She is a child who is subjected to human experimentation. eats a fuck ton of poisonous candy. It's treated like a tragedy, and then of course, she's fine. She's fine. Brownbeard, this special snowflake, gets 2 fake out deaths. Also a side note, you know the fake out deaths are getting bad when even minor characters, fucking nothing burger characters like this, have multiple fake out deaths, only to later show up completely fine. Then we get to Whole Cake Island where we meet Charlotte Moscato, one of Big Mom's numerous kids that she's pumped out over the years. This man should be dead, flat out. Big Mom rips this man's soul out of his body, and we are told in the manga that he's dead. And this is framed as cruel, final, and irreversible. But then he's just fine, and of course we get no explanation. I mean, there's no lasting consequence, no visible damage, no narrative cost. I mean, this fuck just shows up and he's watching Vegapunk's broadcast casually. And as if this wasn't enough, there's also Charlotte Opera, and the less said about his character design, the better. But this character also has his soul drained by Big Mom, and we can't confirm 100% that he is alive, and we can't classify this 100% as a fake out death, but I would bet you everything that I have in my bank account, which, to be fair, isn't that much, but I would still bet it that this man is alive. And then we get to the champion of fake out deaths, Peckhams. This man deserves his own category as the king of fake outs. He doesn't die just once, nor twice, but thrice. Shot repeatedly by Beiji. Completely fine. The second time, this man is shot again by Beiji, this time at point blank range, off of a cliff, into the ocean as a devil fruit user. Still alive. The third and final time we see this guy, he's turned into a literal pincushion. And let's be honest, he's still alive. Until I see a corpse, a grave, and a funeral, I'm assuming he's alive. Now, I want to talk about Pound, because this fake out death isn't annoying, it's just genuinely insulting at this point. Pound's entire character revolves around one thing, him never getting to love his own daughters. Never got to hold them, never raised them, never got to be a part of their lives. And so, of course, Oda tries to milk Pound like a cow, and in his final moments, he has Pound congratulate Chiffon on her wedding, and Pound accepts that his love will never be returned by his own daughter, because she never truly knew him. And this is framed as a tragedy, it's framed as final. We have Oven in the background like the Grim Reaper raising his blade to Pound's head. But then, Pound is alive. Like, this shit is ridiculous. It is emotional fraud. You don't get to build this entire tragedy around irreversible loss, milk these fucking tears, and then undo it without any consequence or care. And my
consequence. Just don't read it. You stopped reading the story. Like, what do you mean? Should he be fined $50 every fake out death? Is that what 100 yen? 1,000 yen? Every fake out death, fine Oda 1,000 yen? Is that what you saying? Like, what are you talking about? This whole segment, like, this is a valid critique, but he's, like I said, the hyperbole is invalidating this shit. You sounding ridiculous at this point. You're sounding dumb.
Question to the One Piece fans, when Oda pulls shit like this, why should I trust any emotional moment in this story? These fake out deaths are so corrosive that they don't just cheapen death, they cheapen the overall emotion that I feel when I'm supposed to be reading or watching this story. I hate this fake out death so much because it's not just simply a fake out death, it's a fake tragedy. Pound reunites with Lola and Chiffon. Yay, all's well that ends well, happy, 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 fuck you. And then we move on to Wano, and at this point this stops being a character problem and it just becomes a world problem. Like, nobody dies in this universe. Because in One Piece, not even the animals are allowed to die. In Wano, we see Kozuki Oden slice this massive boar cleanly in half. It's a moment of shock and a display of Oden's strength. And of course, you guys know where I'm going with this. The pig is completely fine. He comes back. He's rocking a couple stitches on him, looking like a football.
Yo, I did not see that. That is crazy. Oda, that is fucking crazy. I never saw that because I watched the anime. I didn't read the manga, so I did not see the fucking giant boar have scars. That is fucking crazy. That is fucking wild. I can't lie. Oda, that one is stupid. That is crazy. But I will say, not only is this segment kind of brought down by the hyperbole of, using these dramatic terms like emotional manipulation. There should be consequence for this emotional manipulation. Blah, 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 blah. I feel like this segment of the video is brought down by that. But not bringing up the actual deaths in One Piece, I feel like is also invalidating this segment. I feel like you have to bring it up. If you're going to do, anybody who's learned how to write an argumentative essay, you got to give the differing argument something. You gotta bring it up. I feel like you got to bring it up. Hopefully he brings it up because I feel like this video would suck. I already think there's a lot of problems with it. I don't think I would say this video sucks. There's a lot of problems with it. I don't think I would outright say it sucks, but if we get to the end of the segment and you don't bring up the actual deaths in One Piece, I think I'm willing to say this video sucks. So hopefully he brings it up.
You know what, Oda? I'll give you a get out of jail free card with this one because it's funny, but I mean, this is still ridiculous all the same. But this aside, Wano abuses even more fake out deaths. Warden Babanuki literally explodes himself from the inside out, he uses the self-destruct attack, and he's completely fine afterwards. Kinemon gets multiple fake out deaths. He's impaled, he's beaten by Kaido. Oda fake kills this man again and again and again, and he's always fine. At a certain point, like, you just stop reacting. You just watch this shit and you're like, I don't even care. Orochi also got multiple fake out deaths, with him being decapitated and burned. Both times, he's just fine. And in addition to Orochi, Kanjuro also got a fake out death, just because why not? Now let's talk about Dr. Vegapunk. And yes, I know you guys are gonna be screaming in the comments section. Vegapunk was technically killed, okay? Kizaru put this man down, his body dies. Yeah, but here's the problem, guys. Vegapunk still isn't gone, because all the satellites still survive, his consciousness is backed up into Punk records, his knowledge, the thing that defines him, still exists. His mind lives on, even though his body was destroyed. And let's be honest, guys, Oda is 100% going to be putting Vegapunk's consciousness back into a body later on. So I'm gonna ask you guys what actually died here then, because it sure as fuck isn't the character, it's not his influence on the One Piece series, so we are left with zero consequences once again. But don't worry guys, Dr. Vegapunk will be revived soon, but until then you can enjoy Dr. Vegapants, a literal carbon copy of Dr. Vegapunk, except he wears panties on his head. Hilarious. Earlier One Piece faked deaths by saying, well, actually they survived. And now, in the modern day of One Piece, we are still faking deaths by saying, but, they died, but actually their mind lives on. It's a different method, but the same narrative cowardice. Oda always wants the emotional weight of death, while always giving himself an out. But after this many fake out deaths, my problem isn't who survived the story. It's that One Piece has taught me to not believe it when someone dies. One Piece has lost my trust. Every emotional moment in this story becomes nothing more than a sad performance rather than anything of lasting consequence. So at this point you may be wondering, okay Shane, well who actually does die in One Piece? Well, I'm gonna break it to you. The majority of deaths in this series occur in flashbacks. Flashbacks are where Oda is the most comfortable killing off his characters. Now almost every character of importance in this series is required to have a tragic flashback, and almost every tragic flashback
Okay, please mention the non-flashback deaths. I don't think he's gonna, because now we're in a flashback section. There are characters who have died, multiple of them who have died outside of flashbacks, who have died in One Piece in the present day. And I feel like it's a disservice to your audience to not mention that.
requires that someone has to die. You want to talk about being formulaic? This pattern is impossible to ignore, and it applies to every single person in the Straw Hats. Let's start off with Nami. Her mother figure, Belmir, is executed by Arlong. For Zoro, we get the death of Kuina, and this occurs very abruptly, but this flashback defines his entire motivation to become the world's strongest swordsman. Sanji, his mother Sora dies in a flashback, and her death exists solely to explain why Sanji is different from the rest of his Germa siblings. Chopper, we get a flashback with Dr. Heerluck. And I mean, this death is so iconic in the series that this is basically Chopper's entire character. Usopp's mother, Banshina, passes away when he's young, and his father, Yasopp, essentially abandons him so he can carry out his pirate journey. Frankie, we have, of course, Fishman Tom, who is executed in a flashback. I mean, again, this is allegedly, because we don't even see the death, so I'm going to assume he's alive. Robin, we have O'Hara being wiped out, we get Dr. Clover being killed, her mother is killed, and then Jaguar D. Sol dies. Of course, until he doesn't. Brook lost his entire crew in a flashback, Jinbei lost Fisher Tiger. I mean, right there alone, I have already encompassed every single Straw Hat having a tragic backstory with one person dying at a minimum. And this isn't even touching upon the plethora of other One Piece characters that have somebody important to them die in a flashback. Every single one of these deaths always happen before the story starts, or safely outside of the present timeline. Now let me be clear, I'm not saying that all flashback deaths are bad. I think they can be powerful, I think they can be effective, they can add depth to characters. But with this said, when every character goes through some version of the same emotional blueprint, this shit stops feeling organic. And each time the flashback begins, I'm no longer wondering what's going to happen, I'm just waiting to see who's eventually going to die. And once you've seen enough of this stuff, I mean, my emotional response just gets worn down to a nub. It becomes fucking dulled, okay? And it's not because the themes aren't serious. I've said this before. These are serious themes, and One Piece handles them maturely, but it's because the delivery is so damn predictable. You know the beats, you know the pacing, you know there's gonna be some sort of loss in these flashbacks, and this tragedy has become routine. It stops hitting. And these flashbacks don't just dilute death in One Piece, I mean, they can destroy the pacing, which I already touched upon earlier, but this is especially true during fights. I mean, if you look at Sanji versus Queen, for example, we're in the middle of a high-stakes fight, and then suddenly we need to stop everything because maybe Sanji hit a woman? As if Oda was actually going to turn Sanji into a wife-beater. Be serious, come on now. And then we cut to more flashbacks with drama with the Germa family, flashback to Zeph, Sanji's childhood suffering, moral panic, and I shit you not, in the middle of this allegedly high-stakes fight, we have time to give the mouse a flashback. After a fight with a Yonko commander, we really needed to have a flashback with Sanji reminiscing about how he used to cook for the fucking Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. And this is supposed to be emotional depth. This is nothing more than narrative interruption. I'm sorry to break this to you, Oda, I do not care about this mouse. I could wipe my ass with this thing. This thing just continues to interrupt the fight. The fight needs to stop every 5 seconds so the story can reassure all of the readers that Sanji is still Sanji. Instead of letting the fight actually play out, Oda feels the need to hit the brakes every 5 seconds, rewind, and explain the character to us again. These flashbacks are not being used to enhance the story in any meaningful way. It's nothing more than a crutch, and when you need to stop the fight 5 times over to re-justify a character we already understand, it becomes ridiculous. And at this point, you're probably all saying, okay,
I've said it 1,000 times. You do not engage with the story in a genuine way. I'm glad you stopped reading it. If you read manga like this, you should probably stop. Like, what? I would hate to watch a TV show with this nigga. I would hate to watch a movie with this nigga. I would hate to be in the same room while you're reading a volume of manga. Don't even matter if it's One Piece or not. I would hate to be in the same room with this nigga while he's reading a manga. Like, what the fuck? While you're reading a book of any kind, to be honest. This is like those people, you know, when all those games like Repo, Peak, Lethal Company. It's like those people that say, "Oh, that's just friend slop." Like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're just fun games. What the fuck are you talking about, friend slop? It's kind of like that same mentality. Like, you just don't engage with anything meaningfully. So it's like, I don't want to be around you, if that makes sense. Like, why? What do you mean this game is friend slop? Like, download it. Me and the homies was just on this shit a couple of days ago, and it was fun. Oh, this is just friend slop in the replies to a tweet about the games. Oh, this is just flashback slop. Like, that's how you sound, dumb nigga. Like, I ain't even gonna front. Like, you. This is so cynical. I cannot engage with it. I feel like I can't meet you halfway. Like, I can't. I feel like I'm bringing myself down by even trying to understand you.
"Hey Shane, we get it. Fake out deaths suck. Flashback deaths are formulaic. But surely some people die in the current storyline of One Piece, right?" And yes, they do.
Yeah, let's go. Talk about it.
But here's the catch. When these characters do die in the present, they're either 1, completely insignificant, or 2, emotionally disposable.
What did I tell y'all like 20 minutes ago? The criticism is just going to involve if they killed Pell, if they killed this guy, if they killed that guy. Igaram. Oh, it's just insignificant. They were nobodies anyway. Who cares? Let's kill off Sanji next. Fuck out of here.
This brings us to the present-day deaths within the series, starting off with Higuma, a mountain bandit from the first couple chapters of One Piece. This character was completely insignificant. He was taken out by the Lord of the Coast within the first couple chapters of One Piece, and I think it's fair to say that nobody gives a fuck about him. And then we have Mr. 11, who we know literally nothing about except for the fact that 1, he's dead, and 2, he worked for Baroque Works at some point. So, great start to the list here. Then we get Ashura Doji. Yeah, this character fucking sucks, man. Like, I was watching the Wano arc, and I genuinely had to ask myself, am I really watching One Piece, or is this my 600-pound life? This man is not raiding Onigashima. This man is raiding the fucking ice cream truck.
Yeah, I remember he mentioned he likes the silly designs and shit. He said that earlier. Now Ashura Doji's just a fat fuck all of a sudden. Okay.
Look, Oda wants me to feel the emotional weight of Ashura Doji's death, but the only weight I'm feeling is strictly gravitational from his fat ass. Ashura Doji is introduced, and he's around like just long enough for you to remember his fucking name. I mean, he just shows up, he grunts, he drinks, he's sad about Odin, and then he dies. And in the story, it's like, oh, well, somebody died, so you have to be emotional. No, the emotion has to be earned, and Ashura Doji never earned the shit. I think the majority of the Scabbards become interchangeable as the Wano arc starts to progress further, but I would
honestly, I felt Ashura Doji's death. He's one of the only part of the Scabbards who, him and like Denjiro and the Kappa nigga, I forgot his name, they actually had to live through Kaido's like rule. Kinemon fucking also, what's her name again? I forgot her name. Like Raizo, like that shit was just a blink of an eye and 20 years passed. Like these niggas have to actually had to live under like authoritarian rule. And they actually had to see Wano become like a factory, you know, like they actually had to see like the industrialism of Wano. Like they had to see all the pollution and shit. They had to see their people getting poisoned. Like that shit meant something to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too maybe I'm just I don't know.
Nobody's favorite Scabbard. Ashura's my favorite Scabbard, Shane. Shut up, no he's not. Ashura Doji dies from an explosion, which is definitely surprising because we've seen so many characters survive these before. Speaking of the Scabbards, we have Izo, who dies from only a few finger pistol attacks from the CP0 agents. These deaths mean nothing. They add nothing to the overall plot. They don't change the story whatsoever. It's a shame these characters don't have the durability of, say, Igrim.
Okay, so your whole criticism a couple sections ago was about how people like Pell, people like Igaram survived. Their deaths would also not change the narrative at all.
Pell, or maybe even fucking Pagaya, because then they'd probably be alive. No, but seriously, to the One Piece fans here, like, try to explain this shit. Try to justify how Igram, a fucking nobody, could survive an island-sized explosion. Meanwhile, Izo, one of the former commanders of the Whitebeard Pirates, gets taken out by a couple finger pistol attacks. Logically, this makes sense. Maybe if you're getting hit in the head with Usopp's 10-ton hammer. And this is where the writing becomes inconsistent, because you have a Yonko division commander like Izo dying to a few finger pistols, but then you'll have other characters like Eustace Kid just getting obliterated by Shanks, a nuclear warhead being dropped on him, and I don't even blink. One Piece has made death so arbitrary that I no longer trust it even when the story asks me to. But this aside, we have other characters that die, like Monet, the bird woman from Punk Hazard, and, you know, let's be honest, why would I care about this big bird looking bitch? Then we have Pedro. Oh wait, no, that's not Pedro, that's Absalom. He's the invisible sex pervert. He dies. Why the fuck would I care about him? Then we do get to Pedro's death, and Pedro explodes himself, accomplishing essentially nothing except for trying to free the Sunny. And this is a character that in real time the Straw Hats met about only a week ago. And then we get this emotional camera pan with all of the Straw Hats reacting to Pedro's death. But I mean, as for me, guys, I'm sorry. Like, we barely knew anything about this character. He comes in, he fucking Chaosu's himself, and that's it. But moving on, we do get the deaths of both Kanjuro and Orochi towards the tail end of the Wano arc, but because these characters were both given multiple fake-out deaths, it really took the wind out of my sail. So inevitably, when these characters did die, I wasn't even sure if it was finalized or not, or if it was just another fake-out death. But moving on, we do get Saturn's death, and you would think this one would matter because he's one of the Gorosei, one of the highest authorities alive in the entire One Piece series. But emotionally, I mean, who the fuck cares? We spend thousands of chapters with this guy, watching him sit around, we don't know him, he's never humanized or explored in any meaningful way. So when you put his death in a series that has trained me over and over again not to trust death when it happens, I don't feel any sense of shock, I don't get catharsis out of watching him die, I don't feel any loss, I don't feel the relief, I just move on. But I want to be very clear about something, I do think there are deaths in one.
It seems like you do that with everything. You don't engage with the story in a genuine way. Nothing phases you. And it's not like you haven't provided any examples like, oh, when this happened in Alabasta, like I went crazy, da 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 da. Like, it's not even like you're not even presenting this idea that you ever engage with this with the show in a sincere way. Like, you're not providing any like past examples like, oh shit, when this happened on Chaya, I went crazy. When this happened in Scapia, I went crazy. Like, it feels like you read / watched the whole show like this. And it just makes me happy that you stopped watching the show.
In the current storyline, outside of flashbacks that do work, and I want to give Oda credit for this. For example, Yasui's death in Wano, I would consider this to be a good death. It's public, it's humiliating, it's deliberate, he goes out protecting others. And this death has meaning. I just wish we had more time with this character so I could appreciate him more. But this death reinforces themes throughout the entire arc of Wano. It leaves a scar in the readers. The only problem here is it's isolated, and once again, we don't get a ton of time with this character. Speaking of good deaths, Whitebeard. Whitebeard's death is incredible. I think it's one of the best scenes in One Piece. This man dies standing on his feet. An Emperor of the Sea falls. I mean, this moment matters. You can feel it. The world of One Piece changes because
that nigga really be like, good at that.
And now to talk about the death that I'm sure you guys have been screaming about in the comment section the entire time. Ace's death. I think this also works. I'll say this, I did find it frustrating for Ace to turn around just because Akainu is trash-talking Whitebeard, especially when you consider that Luffy, Whitebeard, and so many of these crews from the New World are risking everything to save him. So in my opinion, Ace fucks up here, and this...
Dude, I can't even lie. A lot of these critiques are valid. But this is so, like, this is such an NPC video, bro. Like, this is like One Piece critique 101. Like, this is just the starter pack for any nigga that hates on One Piece. And it's funny because you try to appeal to the audience at the beginning of the video, like, oh, I did this. My first video was about Gecko Moria. You know, I love One Piece. I loved One Piece at one point in time. You sound like the prototypical One Piece hater. Like, you don't sound like you have any meaningful insight of, like, someone that actually once loved the show. You sound like a nigga in a TikTok comment, to be frank. Like, you don't sound any different from, like, what is the point of this video? You sound like a TikToker. You sound like a TikTok commenter that hates One Piece. It doesn't say, you don't have any profound insight as somebody who used to like the show. You sound like everyone else that doesn't like it.
This mistake actually has consequences because Ace dies. The story doesn't undo it, and it's not a fake-out death. Ace's death breaks Luffy. He's already separated from his crew, and I would honestly say the tone of the series starts to shift a little bit. And for once, it seems as though One Piece is going to allow this loss to be real. And then Oda panics, because Sabo was introduced a few chapters later, right after Ace's death. And I know there are going to be some Sabo defenders in the comment section. You guys can cry about the third Sake Cup and tell me that the S on Ace's arm always stood for Sabo. I mean, maybe that's true, but let's be honest, the S could have stood for anything. It could have been symbolic, it could have just been a design quirk, but if you guys really want to ride Oda's nutsack and tell me that Sabo was foreshadowed from chapter 1, you go ahead and do that. Back in Alabasta, there was no definitive proof that Sabo was ever a fully realized character. My problem with Sabo is introducing a magical third brother 10 chapters after the most devastating death in the series. This is not organic. In my opinion, Sabo's appearance in One Piece has always been reactive. He's always felt like a replacement for Ace, and let's be real, functionally he is. He is the same role, the cool older brother. He serves the same emotional function for Luffy. He eats the same devil fruit as Ace, the Marimara no Mi, because of course he has. You dye this man's blonde hair black, and he's Ace 2.0. And the amnesia, oh my.
I really don't feel that way, because I don't look at Sabo in that way. I don't think he's as cool as Ace at all. So he's never really read to me as, like, a replacement for Ace, because he's not Ace. He's not.
My god, this is complete bullshit. I'm gonna borrow a quote from my boy Corcus and just say, this is a load of crap straight out of the horse's ass. It's a narrative contrivance to explain why a character never existed, until the story needed him to, of course. Sabo forgot everything, up until the exact moment Ace dies, of course, and then he suddenly remembers.
You're nothing to me now. You're not a brother. You're not a friend. I don't want to know you or what you do.
This isn't character writing. I mean, this is just pure convenience. And then, of course, Sabo comes back. He's not broken. He's immediately Admiral level. He's fighting Fujitora. He's a top agent of the Revolutionary Army, working directly under Dragon, Luffy's father. Because, of course, everybody has to be connected. Sabo isn't a rediscovered character. He's practically installed into One Piece like some weird patchwork DLC bullshit. Sabo's existence alone really just breaks One Piece for me, because I really felt like Ace's death mattered, only because it was final. And then Sabo just comes along and kind of of makes him replaceable, both emotionally, thematically, mechanically. If a death can just be swapped out and replaced, then it isn't really a loss, and Ace's death kind of proved that One Piece might have been able to tell a story about consequence, but through the existence of Sabo, it just kind of shows me that Oda really wasn't able to go through with it in the end. And this is my problem with One Piece. It's not the world building, it's never been about the artwork, and not the ambition of the series. It's that nothing is ever allowed to be final. After hundreds of chapters, your boy is abandoning ship. I am jumping off of the Sunny. For me right now, One Piece has stopped feeling like a story. It really has become nothing more than a system of formulaic arcs, padded pacing, artificial urgency, fake stakes, reversible death, and characters frozen in place. To be very clear, I don't hate One Piece. I'm walking away from One Piece, not out of anger, but I'm dropping this because I realized I was watching the same story on an endless loop. But if you guys like the video, I would appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. Otherwise, I'm going to give you guys a 10-minute flashback explaining why you should have. All jokes aside, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, take care, and I'll see.
Dude, this video fucking sucked, bro. Like I said, I think I came to a great fitting conclusion to this video. Early on, you appealed to us as a viewer. You presented your credentials as like an OG One Piece fan. Your first video being about fucking, quote unquote, fucking Gecko Moria. Who cares about Gecko Moria? I did, apparently. That's what you said. You appealed to us as a fan, and it seemed like you were gonna offer some insight as someone who previously loved One Piece that no longer does. But you offered none of that insight. You sounded like just the average guy who hates on One Piece. And I feel like that is a damn shame. If you actually followed the story for several years and you actually just grew to dislike it genuinely, I feel like there should be more substance in this video. And there just isn't. And that is a damn shame. If I stopped liking One Piece today, I don't think I would. If I made a 40-minute video essay on it, I don't think I would sound like just another guy in the TikTok comments hating on One Piece. And I don't know, man. Like how did it get to this point? You know, anyone can grow to dislike anything, but how do you grow to dislike something you previously loved, but you have like the most surface level takes on it? How did that happen? And I feel like that's the most disappointing part of this video. It was so surface level. It's things I've heard before. He's like, oh, these One Piece fans are going to be seething in the comments. Like, bro, the average fucking Zoro fan will piss niggas off more than this video would. The average One Piece fan has heard these criticisms thousands of times before. They'll hear them thousands of times in the future. You brought nothing new to the conversation, even though you were a previous fan. This was just nothing. It was nothing. And I feel like that's really bad. All right. He added like an addendum to the comments. A quick note before the comment wars begin. I genuinely think One Piece has a boiling frog effect. The longer most people stay with it, the more they grow to love it, not because the story fundamentally changes, but because the repetition becomes normalized. I'm the weird anomaly here. Of course, you're the weird anomaly. You're the special one. Awesome. The longer I watched, the more the cracks became impossible to ignore, until I eventually walked away after years of being a fan. I'm not here to tell anyone they're wrong for loving it, so I'm genuinely curious. What makes you love One Piece more the longer you watch it? Or if you've fallen off, what moment made you start questioning it? The framing of him as like this guy, he was the first person to see the iceberg on the Titanic. Like he was the first one to get into the emergency boat. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. You're just a guy. The longer most people stay with it, the more they grow to love it. But me, I saw the bullshit for what it was. I'm the special one. Like, oh my God. Get your head out of your ass. This video was so generic. It was generic. How did you get through the stages of content creation? How did you write this? How did you get through your first rough draft? How did you get to the final draft? How did you get through the editing? The editing process, the finalization, the last couple, run throughs before you upload the video. How did you get through all these phases of creation and think this was worthy of being uploaded? How did you not realize, like, a couple weeks into the creation process, like, damn, I'm not really adding nothing to the conversation. Like, to me, sometimes I feel that way. Like, sometimes my imposter syndrome kind of prevents me from creating a video like this. Because if let's say I was in Shane D's shoes, those thoughts would creep into my head. Like, I'm not adding shit to this conversation. I need to stop. Now, that is kind of a flaw of mine. I should, like, see something through to the end. But I feel like there's a small modicum of truth in that. This didn't add anything to any conversation. This does not add anything meaningful to the conversation. You sounded like a generic One Piece hater. Very surface level takes. Nothing that the community hasn't heard. Nothing that they won't hear again. Like, this was just... I don't even know what this was. I'm really disappointed. Jesus. Alright, man. I think I'm going to end the stream. This was a good reaction, though. Even though I didn't really like the video, I feel like I brought something to the conversation at least. I'm actually really proud of the stream, so peace out.